How are you guys?
Good to see you.
Doing good.
Good to see you.
Long time.
It's been a while.
You've been around?
Trying.
Yeah. And you've been here mostly except for skiing?
Except for skiing, mostly here, yeah. I mean, the weather is not that bad
The weather's fantastic now.
at the moment. Two days in a row, beautiful.
What are we? End of February and spring is already with us.
Allergies started.
Good season.
Yeah.
Touch wood, thankfully I don't have any. But it's a nightmare.
I was thinking about this when I first got here. The water in the Rhone was like ice blue, and I'm thinking maybe this year because of all the snow melt,
Yeah.
it's going to be raging.
That affects your allergies or what?
No, but just the beauty of Lyon.
Oh yeah, the beauty of Lyon.
Beauty of you.
Because the Solon has no sidewalks right now,
Yeah.
and the Rhone's
Very,
pretty bad.
very high.
So
We are very
it's-
close to overflow.
Once the snow melts, which I think you'll be able to ski here until June, judging by what I saw.
Well, with the
I did a
delta.
day trip. There's so much snow.
So much snow. So much snow. And the crazy thing is that most of the stations were closed for at least a day.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys have one job.
Well, we were there,
once a
right?
year. We were there. Once a year, it's to make everything work with in any scenario, and it didn't.
Yeah.
That's upset me a lot.
Did you have a
and
lot
they
of
do not
lines?
reimburse you. That's a shame.
Did you not get reimbursed?
I
You
know.
got reimbursed.
I don't know. We didn't.
Did you have big lines?
No, not that much.
Instagram
honestly.
is full of
Yeah,
huge
Instagram. I mean,
lines in France.
the closest station from the big city like Grenoble. So Grenoble, I think the closest station is Champs-Rousse.
Right.
There was lines for 2 hours, like the first from 9 to
Chamonix
12.
had- had-
Horrible.
yeah.
I mean, in Megève, it was amazing. Yeah, no.
Last time I saw snow like that was Canada 2010.
Hmm.
That was a ridiculous amount of snow that fell. over
But
the
you know
course
how
of a couple
they
of
know how
days.
to manage it. I mean, in France, it's always a surprise. Like it's snowing. Yeah, hello.
It's really true. And actually, my Canadian wife had the same comment, was how they should have been faster.
Yeah.
But also snow in New York.
New York got
big
got
episode, huh?
crushed. Massachusetts, Rhode Island, 3 feet, full meter.
What is it? A full meter. 3 feet is a full meter. So is it like on a daily, yearly basis like this?
Never.
Or? No, never.
I mean, it's been probably at least 10 years
10 years was not.
since they got hit that bad. When I was home for Christmas, we got 12 inches, and that was news. But now, they pray for 12 inches instead
The,
of
the city is
24.
organized like in Canada, or is it the same in France? I don't know if you figure out that in France it's not very good, but
It's if it's moderate and consistent, that's
Yeah.
okay. But when it's
it can
huge,
be controlled. Yeah.
it's the parking bans. You can't park on the street. They try to clear it. I've seen some innovative stuff coming out of Canada with the way they remove the snow and then put it into another car
Yeah.
and get rid of it.
It's a military operation.
In New York, they just plow in all the cars parked on the side.
God.
So you finish your driveway and you're like, no, don't come by.
Our car, I don't know about yours, but we had to park our car outside with the top box, the whole thing. So with the top box, plus 2 meters, completely covered.
Oh, yeah.
A good, I would say, 3 meters of snow, easily.
I mean, the good thing with a Tesla is that I was ready to warm it up an hour prior to this, so everything was melted before I get there. So I didn't see my car overflowed with snow. But,
But then you had to recharge it when you were done.
yes, I mean that's a big issue. That's a big issue. Yeah. Honestly, it's crazy. But no, but it was a good session, huh? Good ski session. Honestly,
Very incredible.
Beautiful,
And
yeah.
I
Last
commented
year
on,
was shit, but this year is beautiful.
I commented on a previous podcast how nice it was to actually be there whilst the Winter Olympics was on. It was glorious to be able to, wherever you were, you were getting a drink or you were getting lunch or après ski or what, and lovely to have the various disciplines that we're on. And not only were you there, Billy, but we've got France has got the Winter Olympics again in 2030.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
what was it like to be on the ground at the Winter Olympics?
Part of my wife's bucket list for being here is the Olympics. So we were lucky enough 2 years ago for Paris, opening ceremony. So when
2 years already?
Yeah.
Paris?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, August, I guess.
Okay.
So when it happened in Milan, we have friends in Milan. So she got right on the mailing list and the lottery and the whole deal. It's incredible that people from all over the world, everybody's wearing their jerseys or their flags. Everybody's
So
getting.
take us back a bit. So how long were you there for? A week or?
Yeah, we did 8 days.
Right. Okay. And,
Did a
then,
little sightseeing. Did a side trip to Florence.
and what did you get to see?
We saw opening ceremony. We saw female hockey, Canada, U.S. and we saw a men's Finland, Slovakia, I think. And then we came back for women's one more USA game we got in. And then we left.
And how was the atmosphere? What was the spirit like in the camp?
Great. Paris, it seemed like opening ceremony, because they did it on the Seine. There were multiple checkpoints throughout the city, so it took a long time to just cross the river, get to the chute where you were gonna sit. But Italy, it was in one of their main stadiums there in Milan, and it was basically like a big football game. You know, you had an outer perimeter, no cars, only public transportation, and then you had to go through the metal detector.
So you got your tickets through lottery.
Yeah.
And when you do this, you say you're from the US or you're from France?
I think we put down US.
And does it automatically park you with all the
There were a lot of
US
in our
guy
section.
around you?
Yeah.
So there is a link between
I
maybe
think so.
the country.
Paris too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good way to organize it. And even if you don't get the lottery, that app,
People can resell, no?
that's how you resell.
Ah.
You never
through
get
the
a
app.
physical ticket.
Ah.
It's only on the app. QR code when you walk in. So if you can't make that game, you can try to resell it. If you don't, you eat it. But that's how we got the.
With a limited price, or you can put the price
No,
as
you
want?
can't. You can't adjust the price at all. So that marked price is it.
Ah, okay. No, that's good. That's a good
It's
point.
good. Yeah, there's no scalping.
Should be the same for World Cup or stuff like that. Yeah?
Yeah, it was very organized. And then we got to that U.S. game.
US female hockey.
Yeah, 30 euros per seat.
That's
And
amazing.
it said obstructed view and brand new stadium. So I'm
Olympics.
like, what's that mean? You know, because we had been in the arena before, and it was the bars, the safety bars, like as you walk in, that so you don't jump off.
Right.
That was it for 30 euro.
Wow.
Great game, great seats. You know what you don't see on TV is like every 10 minutes there's a break, and they got these young kids with their shovels, and they get to skate the ice. So they come out like a military formation, like this wedge formation, coming onto the ice. They scrape it, and they're well rehearsed. They're like, they do these loops.
whole
It's like a mini
sequence.
Zamboni.
Right.
But it was incredible. They scoop out the goals. They do the commercials. Guy runs around the stadium getting people involved.
That's
they do
amazing.
like little games. So it was great. Didn't want to leave.
The girls are allowed to fight? Are you allowed to fight in the hockey game
I think
at the Olympics?
I don't want to say it's outlawed, but there was a few elbows going.
Yeah, with ladies also?
Yeah, they check. The women were tough, very
Okay.
tough.
So the ladies have the enforcer as well, do they?
Yeah.
They do.
I mean, they have a body armor. I mean, they can go crazy.
I mean, when they're behind the net,
yeah.
somebody's getting hit.
Yeah.
And the women were just as tough as the men, for sure.
But the impact sometimes is amazing.
Oh, you hear like
See.
even with all the music and the screaming, you hear boom,
Looks like it's going to break almost. Yeah.
and everybody goes, "Oh!"
And how was it from a security perspective? Like, you know, the lines, getting in. Like, what was the general?
I mean,
They do a good job.
you know, being in NYPD, I expect the inner perimeter, the outer perimeter. Everybody was just locked down. You know, you couldn't drive up.
Lockdown. What do you mean lockdown?
Like if you wanted to drive your car and park close to the arena, you
No
weren't
go.
getting close.
Right.
Good.
I saw them. They had multiple checkpoints blocks away. So if you're not very, you know, if you're not in a walkable mood,
Yeah.
you know, these Olympics might not be for you because, you know, you're gonna walk a few miles between the last point the Uber drops you off. Like Italy locked in all their taxis with Uber. So I don't want to tell you how much money we spent on Uber.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want to take the metro, but lockdown, we got a taxi in, I mean, the longest we waited was 5 minutes.
So no taxis except for Uber. Is that?
Uber had a specific spot
lounge only.
at one of the metro stations, and then you had to walk like almost a mile in. You know,
And compared to Paris organization, security-wise,
Paris
how
was
it?
the same thing. When I went to one of the track and field events, I probably walked.
At the
It
Stade
was
de
over a
France?
mile.
Stade de France, you
Yep.
Yeah. Which is a high security.
Very
yeah.
high, and multiple officers at corners.
Okay.
Just, you know, those guys seem to be just waiting for something. But when you get in, it's not X-ray, but the metal detectors. Females had to open up the pocketbooks. Any back. I did see a lot more backpacks at a event than I did in France.
Yeah.
France, it was very specific. No backpacks. You're not going to get in with them. But they did a great job. They had the Qatari police.
Yeah.
I have a friend in the municipal Milan police, and he's like, yeah, you'll see the Qataris out there, and you can't miss them because they're in this like light blue semi-camouflage thing with
Winter
berets.
camouflage.
Yeah.
Welcome to our late arrival, Jean-Louis, who's used to bringing up the rear of the field.
I don't know what that means, but thank you and apologies.
And timing provided by
Notontime.com.
lastminute.com. Anyway, nice to have Jean-Louis with us, but we were just in the middle of Billy's security assessment of the Winter Olympic Games ahead of now France is going to get them in 2030. But compared to Paris, it was...
Well, they had the challenge also of Cortina, which was a couple hours from Milan. So, all the skiing, bobsled, that type of thing was all held there. So I didn't get to that location. Mostly just the opening ceremony and the hockey.
Yeah.
And very well run. I mean, they didn't have any specific threats. Their biggest threat there was, lone wolf type attack. Cyber, though, is one of their higher concerns. Drones.
For me, I'm surprised there is no, attack on them. Just drones flying everywhere, like people just getting in the, in the main events.
They have that electronic netting basically.
Ah, really?
Where you're not going to get close to that stadium.
Oh, okay.
So the hockey arena obviously was enclosed, but the opening ceremony was, huge, wide open. Like I've worked the U.S. Open in Queens, New York, where a drone has gotten in, and
Just for filming?
just for filming, just not as a threat, as a terrorist
it's
threat,
always
but just somebody trying to get it in there, and the thing is disabled immediately.
And you can track him with them?
And you'll see the next day in the papers that so and so was arrested.
Yeah,
for,
so it's not a
drugs.
non-risky
So
situation. Yeah.
they have it together for sure. A lot of military. The train station, there was, I don't want to say a tank, but like armored personnel carriers with the military. And one thing that's different than Paris is Paris with the military, you could go up, take a picture with the cops or the military. The Italian army walked up and was like, hey, can you delete that photo?
It's
Really?
Yeah. And they were on it like that.
they are not joking. I'm pretty sure it's the same in Spain. You can take picture with a policeman. They are, that's the ex-fascist style of police.
It was
so
just a
they are
photo
very
of the
rude and
personnel
strict.
carrier. Yeah. So
But
that was surprising.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, so I know that within the world of sort of major event security that you do have, I know that you mentioned the Qatari support, but you also have
German police were
German
there.
police, I believe American law enforcement. It's essentially a wonderful opportunity to observe, the execution of these, as well as
absolutely.
to provide support, right? And, one thing, and we'll segue into, our experience joining this march, but the sheer effort from security personnel, really the security community, because, everyone's put themselves onto, a mode of alertness and they're tapping into their network, everything, right? Making sure that no stone is left unturned to make sure that the event is executed in a safe way. And, always you get to the end of these tournaments and just in my time previously with Interpol, but, breathing a sigh of relief that no event, which must have been your, experience.
Well,
with
for
the
us,
US
every
Open.
year was New Year's Eve in Times Square.
Times Square, yeah.
So that was an absolute, manpower intensive event.
Yeah.
And basically, there were no days off for the NYPD.
But the layers and layers and layers, and when you talk about outer perimeter, the inner perimeter, as you get closer to the actual event.
Yeah.
Did you feel, as an American, any difference, or is everything good?
No, at no point did I feel, we were in jeopardy whatsoever.
Yeah.
Everybody was getting searched.
Right. Lots of MAGA hats.
No MAGA hats. No MAGA hats, but
Except yours.
plenty of USA jerseys. Everybody came out.
Right.
When they played, when the females played Canada, Canada brought it. there were,
They brought it.
oh man, there were a lot of fans.
Yeah. So the result in the female final was USA victory. You've
Yes.
done the double effectively,
Yes.
as we've seen from scenes coming out of the US with the State of the Union, Trump capitalizing on the real winning momentum that seems to be galvanizing.
He likes the
United
sports. I'll
States.
give him that. He definitely likes the sports. Likes the winning team for sure.
And this wonderful iconic photo, which we have to get with the player with the broken tooth,
Oh,
blood
yeah.
coming out, holding up a flag.
I mean, he was amazing. No doubt. I'm not taking anything away. But the goalie.
yeah.
The goalie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, you were saying just before.
I watched that game. That game should have been 4-1
Yeah.
Canada. 3-1 maybe. But that goalie was incredible.
And he's going to be awarded the Freedom Medal.
Freedom.
Of course.
Who awards that?
The goalie, the USA goalkeeper.
No, but who awards it? Who actually decides?
Oh, who
A
awards it?
goalkeeper in
Well, the
Trump.
president. I think
Trump,
it's an
yeah.
executive.
Well, they gave it to Bill Cosby, so, you know. And Ellen and Oprah. So it's basically
Yeah, but these guys.
Political.
Yeah, it's political. I see.
But I think it's great. Look, you've got the 250 anniversary of the United States. You know, any win's a win. You're gonna
oh,
run with
yeah.
it. This
Well,
is huge.
hockey-
I mean, hockey is.
It's enormous.
And I was going into it, obviously, with my connections to Canada, being Canadian, proudly Canadian. It was a tough. It was a tough one.
You mean
to-
you have a passport?
it was a tough pill to swallow. I'll not lie. But yeah, a lot of very upset Canadians, and I think probably doubly so because what you've got those that are also upset with Trump, seeing that he's capitalizing on this very painful
Oh,
victory
yeah. He's
already.
doing the dance for sure.
So there's a lot of unhappy Canadians at the moment.
yeah.
Jean-Louis and I, following the devastating news of the killing of a French student on French soil on the streets of Lyon just a couple of weeks ago, we took ourselves down to the march to pay our respects, but also to get a first-hand account. And what I want to do first is to bring Jean-Louis in to really speak about this from a Frenchman's perspective, his understanding of the political. From my side, it was very troubling to see a young Frenchman slain like this. But perhaps, Jean-Louis, you can tell us a little bit about your experience at the march, and I can wade in.
So there was an organization that decided to hold a march. I'm calling it a march as opposed to a protest because I think it was really a march in remembrance of this guy Quentin, who died now. What is it?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago. Now he was killed in some sort of fracas between supposedly the far left and the far right, who basically subsequent to a university event where someone called Hassan, who's quite a well-known young figure in the LFE party, which is a major party, polls at roughly 20% or so.
She's Palestinian. She's known in France, especially for.
Yeah, so she's known for that, and she's known for her strident views. And I'd heard of her before this thing, but this kind of brought her into light. And obviously, it's got really not a lot to do with her per se, but she was speaking at the university. People came to protest against her and against her party. That ended up spilling out into the streets, and as a result, somehow this guy Quentin died, right? And there are videos of him getting beaten to death. Well, not beaten to death. He was beaten up badly, and then he died later on when he tried to walk home. So there was a march over the past weekend, which myself and Ross attended. Now the march was supposed to start at 3 p.m. It was supposed to go 1.5 kilometers, so basically a mile, and end up at the place where the guy died.
Okay.
Right, so it started somewhere, ended at the place where the guy died. Now, Ross and I were not going to partake in this march. The idea for us going there was not to partake, it was to observe. So that's what we did. We turned up. I was on time, as per usual, and Ross was already there.
I should say that you gather at 3. Everyone gathered at 3, and there was talking. He arrived at 4, as the march had already gone. So anyway,
It was difficult to find a parking space.
Yeah, of course. No, but did you wait for them at the end of it?
No.
Where he died? Or
No,
we
they
joined at the beginning, and
They took a long
walked.
time to actually get the march going. So there was a lot, I don't know what, there were a lot
So
of
you were at the
speeches.
end, in the middle, at the beginning?
No, at the beginning.
At the beginning.
So when I turned up, which was about 3:45, the march
Yeah.
hasn't even started yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the police, I turned up on one place. There was such a heavy police presence.
Yeah.
Now, I don't go to many protests. i.e., this is my first one. And
But for you, it was unusual. You thought it was unusual. The present.
Yes, even for me, I thought it was unusual, and then it was confirmed later by a number of people that either we spoke to at the time or later on in the press, etc., that this was an unusually high number of police relative to the protest size itself. And they actually blocked me from getting to the protests in the first instance. I had to get back in my car, drive all the way around, and then walk from where they told me I could walk. So there was only one place where you could actually walk to the march, essentially. They blocked everything off within a very wide cordon. And the area in which it happened, there's a huge industrial zone, what we would call in the UK a brownfield site, i.e. There's no people living there, and it's massive. It must be 4, 5, 6 acres or something like that. So already you've got a big zone just next to where they were going to actually do the march, where there's nobody living there anyway. So limits the number of people, makes it easier to actually defend it from a police perspective. So when we turn up at the march, first thing I see is when I turn up, so Ross is already there, I turn up. First of all, there's not that many people that I see when we first turn up, when you first get there. There's a little bit of speaking on a megaphone and this kind of thing by the organizers. The first thing I see is there's a bunch of guys, there's a huge amount of police, and then there's a bunch of guys who are clearly running the thing from a security perspective. So I still don't know who these people are exactly, but they were all wearing a yellow band around the arm. They're not police, but they're clearly
involved in security.
Involved in security means sanctioned by the police.
Yeah.
And they're the ones pushing everyone in this direction. Don't do this, get down from here.
Yeah.
They told us
let
to
me
get down.
interrupt you just now, because if we can just go to this clip here. So J-Lo, do you want to speak over this?
Yeah, sure. So this is before the march, so just before they get started. And we could see the number of people that are there ready to start the actual march. Now, it looks pretty peaceful from what you can see.
And it looks like they come from everywhere also, no?
Yeah.
Like it's
It's quite a wide...
coming up from
Yeah,
all the
it's-
streets.
Well, they've all come from one area, and they've been
Okay.
told to go down one particular
So
street.
no cover face because it was a...
No, was there?
No cover face. Nobody with a cover
No,
face.
there's
there
plenty of people
were
with
plenty
covers.
of people with
Plenty
covers,
of people.
Plenty?
This was
Really?
like this was like a sort of square, but you had, you see one.
There's only one French flag that I saw in the whole thing. And as you could see, it's not particularly noisy. Here we don't hear the megaphone, but the megaphone was sounding when I turned up, and they were basically saying, we're here for Quentin, we're here to march. And so there was these guys who were kind of guarding the whole thing to make sure there's no, in French we would say débordement, which means there's no like fracas or
Overflow,
violence
yeah.
or fighting on the sides. And they did a really good job. I mean, they were pushing people in certain directions, and when people were getting... So what I saw when I very first turned up is this guy who later I saw on social media trying to instigate the crowd, trying to instigate the people who were there by saying things like, I'm glad he's dead, I'll be celebrating tonight, this kind of stuff. Now, I saw it myself, and there were a bunch of people with him who were doing it. Now, I don't know if they were Antifa types or
paid
what they were, or paid provocateurs. I don't know what they were.
What did the guy with a lady right beside him with a knife in her hand? You know, there was this picture of a guy with a cutter in the hand.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't see
he was this guy, maybe. You know?
No, I don't know. I
He
didn't
was
see
a very
that.
loud speaking guy. But okay, but maybe that was minute.
He was wandering around on a scooter, and then there were a bunch of other people who were making comments from the side, so you could see it.
Yeah, of course.
Who were being quite, And anyway, the march was a very solemn affair. It was a sad affair. I would describe it as a very sad, solemn, like a funeral. And
it was a silent walk. It was branded as a silent
It
walk.
certainly wasn't silent. So there was a bit of singing. It wasn't very noisy. There was no music.
Chants. There was the justice for.
Yeah, people were chanting. So they were saying Antifa causes violence.
Well, they were actually saying
left.
Antifa assassins.
Yeah, they were saying Antifa assassin, which means Antifa causes violence, Antifa kills, this kind of thing.
So it wasn't silent, is the point.
Yeah, it wasn't silent.
It wasn't silent.
There were a few flags, but not that many. Only one flag of France that I saw.
Two, but there wasn't more than.
There wasn't more.
There wasn't a lot.
Forbidden. Maybe it was forbidden.
It wouldn't have been forbidden because that flag was very prominent and easily brought downable. So I guess either they allowed just one or what. But anyway, I didn't see anything untoward. I saw on social media later there were a couple of people doing Nazi signs or what looked like Nazi signs. Now, I didn't see any of that, but clearly it was caught on camera by someone, and the mainstream media made a big thing about it, but I personally didn't see it. And when we followed the march, so we followed the march in parallel, which was easy to do because it was very slow. And the most moving part was when we actually got to the part where Quentin was actually
killed.
Not killed, but where he was left for dead. And we managed to get there before the marchers arrived, so we were right in the thick of it, and we saw how they did it with the flambeau. Now, you got to understand, for people who maybe didn't pay much attention to this, we've said this before in the prior podcast, that we think potentially this could become a very big event for France, because we're going to get the trial of the people who've now been arrested.
Yeah.
So we know who these people are. There's about 5 or 6 of them. I think this trial is going to be a big deal in France. It's going to be it's going to be all over the media. We haven't seen anything yet about how the prosecutor is going to go about doing it, but they were arrested 5 days after the actual march. So it wasn't that slow, wasn't that quick. It was kind of normal speed for arresting them, as I understand it, from the prosecutor perspective. 5, 6 guys getting arrested. I think this is going to be a very big trial.
Yeah.
But not just big, international, right? I mean, it has, this story has.
people from
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And this people now, with its various layers that have spun off, is an international story. The US ambassador, for his comments being summoned, like, this is on that platform now.
It is.
So in many ways, to you both, like, this is France very much on trial here. Is that not the the narrative that's emerging?
The narrative that's going to emerge. Well, certainly. Well, let me get to the crux of why we were there. One of the reasons why we were there at the protest. So, in the mainstream media, I'd read a lot about the fact that this guy Quentin was supposedly a far right activist. So for me, one of the reasons for going down there was to kind of question that, to see what does this mean.
Indeed,
because
yeah.
I know nothing about this
How
in
has
France.
this story been framed?
Who are these people? Is there really a far right? Is there an extreme right? I have known nothing about this thing. I have no friends who claim to be this or that. No one in my entourage is. So I really have no idea. So I'm coming from the perspective of someone who's asking the questions. So when we turned up, we found a few people to speak to. We saw the media was there. I saw France 3, I saw France Info, I think. Maybe
Euronews.
France Inter, Euronews.
Lyon
So a lot
Capital,
of
the Courier, Lyon.
a lot of far left oriented media, mostly.
Let's just say media. Let's just say media.
Mainstream media.
The
let's
mainstream media.
Yeah.
Now, from the perspective of trying to keep this as balanced as possible, from my perspective, you can say whatever you want, but from my perspective, I'm trying to keep this. I would agree with you that a lot of mainstream media in France is quite left, but
Because it's public, we know it is.
I mean, I don't know much about CNews, for example, which I would determine to be a conservative news,
yes,
like a
true.
Fox.
It is.
Fox News type.
Yeah.
I didn't see them. I mean, maybe they were there. I don't know. But anyway,
BFM was there.
didn't see BFM.
BFM were there, yeah.
Oh, were they there? You
Yeah.
saw them. Okay, cool. So a lot of the mainstream guys were there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't manage to speak to those guys particularly, but we managed to speak to people on the edge of all this. So we spoke to, for example, Courrier de Lyon.
Okay.
Now, that was an interesting conversation because we were right at the moment when the protest, the march was about to arrive where Quentin had been left for dead. And these two guys were there clearly as journalists. So I started to talk to them. And no, in fact,
Well,
they came up to us.
They
Didn't
came
we?
up to me first
Yes.
and said, "Where are you from?" Because they'd heard us speaking English.
They could see we were observing, kind of
Yeah.
like maybe media or something.
Okay.
And we'd already interacted with a couple of girls who were also standing nearby, who were
journalists.
sort of journalists. They were studying journalism at university. So we had a nice conversation with them, told them about the podcast, etc. Anyway, but they didn't seem to be there to be reporting. They said that we're the
Well, they wanted to interview you, didn't they?
Well, yeah, but that we've organized that for later. Anyway, so we were there to and so this guy started to talk to
Yeah. So
there was a slight
he said
lull.
to me, "Where are you from?" And I said Scotland. Then he wanted to know, what I was doing in Lyon. And then his mate comes over to speak with.
No, that's funny. How can he perceive you like someone not from the?
No,
Wait, because you're looking, they're looking, and you feel like.
I'm not quiet, and we were sort of talking.
we were
and,
standing we were standing next to
It was
them.
before the crowds had arrived.
And it took a long time for everyone to come to that culmination of the march where they sang some songs, they got some flambeaux out, which is flame thingies, and they laid a wreath of flowers and this kind of thing, right? So it took quite a good half an hour for everyone to get in place and get organized. And I saw a fight, a skirmish within that group as it was coming towards. So there was some.
Well, there was somebody from a building.
Yeah.
And
Two
perhaps
guys
you should-
that was screaming also.
from the building.
Yeah,
and
we
then
saw
there
that.
was a spill out where.
There were a couple of little bit of violence here and there. It seems like there were some provocateurs who were really doing a good job
Of course.
trying to get them to. And I could see that the main guy who was the leader of this young guards, I would call them, the guys who had the yellow thing and who were like sub police. I could hear them saying, "Don't react, don't react
yeah.
to the provocateurs." And
No.
even we saw this lady come up and call them all fascists, and she was like, "Vous êtes tous des fachos, vous êtes la honte de France." This older lady who was wearing these red corduroys. And she was saying this just as they were laying the reefs. And I
She was a
thinking-
boomer? She was a boomer?
She was a boomer,
Yeah,
yeah.
Ah, of course.
She was your favorite type of person.
Hate them.
She's probably in the pharmacy at the
She's
same
in the
time as
pharmacy
you.
right
Oh,
now.
no, no. Yeah, she just came back. She saw me. She said, I have to do something.
And she was just a normal lady in red corduroys shouting this on the edge of when they were laying the reefs. And I was thinking to myself, why would you do this now? I
Yeah.
mean, you could wait a little bit or do it before. Anyway,
Time of a life.
the young guys, the young guard, I would say, because they're all young guys, they all look like rugby players to me.
Yeah.
And they were saying, don't react, don't respond, don't do anything. And which was quite right. And she carried on doing her thing, but then she walked away
Yeah.
herself. So, but there wasn't very much of that from what I saw in that area. Anyway, at the same time, we were talking to these journalists from Courrier de Lyon. And so then he realized I spoke French. So he started, and they were like, oh, okay. So then he started to say, what are you guys doing here? And I said, well, we're here to just observe. We have a podcast and we want to, half the point of our podcast is to tell English speakers the story of France from our perspective and from the inside. And then I said to them, look, what are you guys? And they're like, we're Courrier de Lyon. And I was like, oh, cool, you're from the Courrier de Lyon. That's awesome. Yeah, great. So you're here to report. Super. And I said, well, in that case, may I ask you a question? My question is as follows. I read in the mainstream media that this Quentin character is being characterized as a far-right activist and identitaire, which means nationalist or nativist in English. May I ask you, what evidence do you guys have for this? Because I read as much as I can, and I don't see any true, genuine evidence. Can you please tell me what evidence you have
Of
for
this 23-year-old.
Yeah, being a far-right
male,
activist and
yeah.
being a nationalist and being a nativist.
Do you remember when you were 23 years old? Like
And what-
how political were you at 23 years old? And you were more interested.
I was even amazed to have the right of voting. Was I didn't know anything.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't preclude the fact that it could be.
bodybuilding and-
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't
100%. But
No, you can be
the
educated,
point
of
is,
course.
you're still, you're
So-
talking about an extreme at 23. I tell you what made me extreme is becoming a dad of girls. That's what made me extreme at the
Of course.
ripe old age
Yeah,
of
you-
38 or
you
40.
were far
You're going
nicer
to get
before.
very extreme. You know.
So what did the guy answer to me? Do you remember?
Yeah, his immediate response was, as he was trying to sort of figure us out, but his immediate response was to sort of kind of bring his mate back into it. Oh, look, this far right. What a far right question.
Really?
Yeah. So he said to me, "Why are you asking me?"
So he thought you were tricking him.
Yeah. So he said to me, "Why are you asking me such far right questions? Are you far right? What party are you from?" I said, "Listen, honestly," and I had to kind of like try and charm him as much as possible and say, "Listen, honestly,
Respectfully.
Ross and I are simply here to observe
And to understand.
And to understand. And we are not this or that. We're not even from any mainstream media. We're not from, we just have a podcast where we try to explain things as we see them. And my question is genuine to you. What evidence do we have that he was a nationalist or a nativist? I'm not denying or advocating one position or the other. I'm just asking you because I'm genuinely interested. And now I'm talking to a real journalist. I want to know.
Yeah.
And it took him a wee while, but then
Can you imagine how much butter you have to
Yeah, there was a lot of
Sure,
butter.
put on him?
there was a little bit of that. But anyway,
a bit of demi-sel.
yeah, so once he started to get a bit, he realized that I was kind of genuine and that I wasn't just trying it on. He said, okay, let me give it to you then. So he gave me a list. He said, look, there's been some proper investigations by a number of journalists into this guy and his affiliations. And what we found is that he was a member of, he was a converted Catholic, right? So he wasn't a Catholic to begin with.
He recently converted to
Yeah,
Catholicism.
a recent convert to Catholicism. And I said, okay, well, that in itself is
What
not-
is it? Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
that doesn't sound particularly right-wing to me or extreme to me. And he was like, yeah, fair enough. But he was a member of a church here in Lyon called Saint-Georges. And he said, and I said, I don't know what that means. You're going to have to explain that to me. And he said, Saint-Georges is a church. This is what he said to me. He said, Saint-Georges is a church that houses a lot of far-right nationalist Catholics who are in that kind of circle, in that kind of group. So I was like, okay, I can't say anything to that because I don't know anything
you
about
don't
it.
know,
Anyway, I went and found out since that moment, I've had a little bit of investigation myself into Saint-Georges to see. And so he carried on and I said, okay, but again, that in and of itself isn't damning evidence, is it? Because you can be a member of a church. And how big is Saint-Georges Church? Oh, it's quite big. How big is the congregation? What's big? All right, so you can be in the church and not be, a member of a far-right group. And he said, but he's also now this is where his main evidence comes from. He said he was a card-carrying member of Action Française. Now, I'd never heard of Action Française. I had to write this down. and I sent it to you guys in the group because I was writing all this down as he was speaking. So Action Française, as I later discovered, I was like, okay. So I said to him, okay, I don't know what that is. And he said, it's a nationalist far-right group. I was like, okay, so he was in that and then he left. Is that what you're saying to me?
It was dissolved. No, I think it was dissolved. So because it was a Lyon group from Lions, and I think it was dissolved by our ex-defense minister or something like this. So he was in this group, but it was dissolved.
I see.
So
Yeah.
I think it was that.
So I carried on. I said, okay, so he was in Action Française. He was, and then he came out of it. He's a convert to Catholicism, and he's got very Catholic views apparently. And he's he's a member of the church, the Catholic Church of Saint Georges in Lyon. Those three things. And I said to him, well, what about Twitter and Instagram? Has he posted stuff that would lead you to think that he's got those kind of views? He was like, we don't have any. I don't have any of that to share with you. And it kind of ended there. And I was like, okay.
He had to gaslight you first to
Right.
say, "Why would you ask me that question?" Because they don't want to lose their theme.
You can't ask but that's the thing. There's no debate. There's no questions.
Right.
It's just
He's
the
a Catholic.
question itself. But like he didn't say, "Oh, you must be this thing, this bogeyman that comes
To
from
ask the
that
question.
side of the political spectrum." The far right. He didn't do that. He said that question itself.
The question itself
Makes
is
you
a far right question.
Right.
That's a journalist.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I try and be a little bit objective as much as I can and go to his side as much as possible, when he first met us with his colleague, he thought we were Scottish.
Yeah, that's my point. So when you ask the question, you ask it in French?
We were speaking
You were
English.
foreigners.
I
Yes,
said I was
we were
Scottish.
foreigners.
And then Jean-Louis turns on the French button and immediately
Okay,
he's like, so we can speak the same
yeah,
language.
So my question
here.
is, if you kept your English,
Yeah.
would it be the same?
So I suppose from his perspective, he'd already been tricked by us because here's this guy in front of him who's talking English to Ross. And Ross said he was from Scotland. And then suddenly I'm able to speak French.
He was very offended by how well you could speak French. I mean, take it.
He was a little
maybe
bit
it was
taken up.
personal.
Huh?
Maybe it was personal. No?
Could have been.
Yeah, could be. No, maybe.
Let's not preclude the fact that it could have
yeah.
been. Anyway, it's so he was a little bit flummoxed by the fact that switched from English to French immediately, and then suddenly asking questions. So clearly he was on the back foot. Let's say. So maybe he thought I had an agenda or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can
we
see
can't
from his
discount that
perspective.
he's probably a regular listener to the podcast, so he knows exactly where you're coming from, and that's possible.
Yes, well, he's,
Soon will be.
Soon,
hopefully he will become. But I actually don't know how good his English is. But anyway,
it was pretty good.
But you're very courageous too, because for me, as soon as the argument of fascist or far right comes, I mean, end of the conversation, you can go further with those people.
This
It's-
was my take home. This was 100%
it's
my
like
take
the
home.
Godwin point. It's
Yeah.
like in a
You get
discussion.
labeled. You get labeled at end of
as a
conversation.
fascist.
It's a,
end of-
it's
I
a
know, but
point.
Nico,
And it's easier to do because now you're discounting
Yeah.
and I don't have to explain.
You have
that.
nothing
I have no
to-
evidence.
but you've got to be able to get beyond that, right? Because he
but they don't
felt,
want to.
Maybe he felt he was being a little bit tricked by us in the beginning, or maybe he felt, the atmosphere, as Ross was saying, was tricky, etc. So maybe he felt we were some sort of subversion journalists or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, whatever he felt, I dispelled that by trying to talk to him in French and say, look, I'm genuinely asking the question because I'm genuinely interested in
Of
the
course.
answer. And that's it. And so he accepted that. And so he spoke very openly and plainly afterwards. So all credit to him. Anyway, from but it was an interesting point to say that is a far right question. I didn't know questions could be far right or far left or in the middle. But anyway, that was an interesting perspective for me.
I think so.
And in the end, he was very nice to us and he gave us his account of things. Now, from everything I heard from him, I still don't have, in my view, enough evidence to call him a nativist. Maybe the evidence points to that. And then with the Church of Saint Georges, I did my own investigation. I called someone I know who probably goes there, or certainly would know the church because they're very Catholic family. And they told me that Saint Georges Church probably does have those factions within it. Probably. If there's any church in Lyon that does, it probably does.
But what does it mean?
Like
Those factions. Like
those factions meaning the ultra-Catholic
Okay.
who are also associated with the far right.
Okay.
Now, I don't know anything about this, but that person did say to me, yeah, there probably are, but it's very minority, very small number, but yes, there probably are those types of factions. Therefore, you can make it's easy for connection to say, well, because there is this, therefore he is that, which is a bit of a shame if you don't investigate it a bit further and find out if it's true or not. So I do find it a bit exacerbating from an Anglo-Saxon perspective, half French, half Scottish person, to read in our mainstream press in the UK, basically affirmation that he's a nationalist and far-right activist, when all they've done is regurgitate what the mainstream media in France has done, without saying, hold on a second, let's try and investigate ourselves to see if there's actually any evidence to point to the fact that he is.
Even so, if he was, should he die for it? You know, because that's the end of it, because it's...
This is it. But I mean, what we witnessed, which and what we're speaking about is the framing of it. And you know, you could easily have framed it, you know, that a French student was slain by a bunch of hooded thugs. I said to Jean-Louis as we arrived, as we waited, and bear in mind, you know, we've walked a long way. We've seen how this crowd has snaked around a couple of blocks. How many people are here, Jean-Louis?
Yeah. That's right. When we, you know, you and I had the conversation at the time, we were like, try and count how many people there are, unless see what the mainstream media reports it as. It's difficult to count people, obviously. I mean, we're not an air hostess in an airplane with the clicker.
But you are also somebody who involves themselves in major events, as in,
this is
so
true.
you've seen crowds gather for triathlons and around France.
Yeah, this is very true.
But Nic also reminded us when we went up during Fête de Lumière to give thanks to Mary, as we were climbing the slopes of Fourvière, the figures 15 to 20,000, right? Now, it gave us a yardstick. Yeah. And I said to Jean-Louis, how many people do you actually think are here? Knowing prior to 3,200, a very specific number, 3,200.
The speaker person who was on a sort of van and the one leading the cortege, she said there were 3,500 present. Now, when we looked at it, so we saw them all in one block, one street, when we came to that final.
And going round the corner of it.
And round the corner.
Quite tell.
It's very difficult to estimate, but 3,500 sounds definitely not an underestimate. And I would say it was maybe 4,000, somewhere between 2.5 to 5, I would say.
Okay, but more than 4 for you, more than 4,000.
I don't know. It's difficult to say.
But judging by the length of the street, you know, approximately how many people you can put, and
I would have had it more above 5. But again, I'm not an expert in counting. I don't know how many went round the corner. But
it's honestly difficult to say.
Okay, so but the gap doesn't seem that big comparing to other manifestations we had in France, strikes, like where there is a big discordance between what the media says and what the official says. There is like it's a 1 to 3 ratio, you know. So it looks a little bit more conservative this way.
There's AI. I could have probably deployed.
For sure,
there was drones.
AI with drones, counting heads for sure. It's going to.
So someone knows the real number.
Your guys are on it.
Yeah. My guys.
You guys.
Yeah, we're on some of the on the news footage because we're right at the place where the guy was. We had a good vantage point. But I would say 3,500 from what the speaker said sounds, and sounds that you can't. I wouldn't dispute that number.
Okay.
But what I've seen in the press is everything from 1,000 to about 3,500. I haven't seen anything say 4, 5, or 6 in the press.
No.
For me, it was about 5, but again, I'm not the expert. And
neither am I. Not county people.
The other thing that I observed was certainly whilst people were congregating, starting to gather. I was quite surprised with the number of children I saw, families, dogs, people arriving in with their dogs. Anyway, massive shout out to the security personnel that were working overtime on something that must have been, I saw a lot of young cops, fully geared up, and you could see in their eyes, these guys were, it was like, going into battle. Old.
They get a lot of practice.
Well, they're used to it. Yeah, they're used to it. They're battle hardened, those guys.
Yeah, but young guys. So not so sure how long they're out there.
I hate to tell you that a lot of people look younger the older you get.
This is true. This is true, buddy.
This is definitely true. But they're in the army essentially, so they're they're trained, they're battle hardened, they get a lot of practice. As Bill says, it's but we left that. So after when it finished there, that's where it finished, and then the police asked everyone to disperse, and everyone dispersed. Now we went home pretty much straight away, so we didn't see if anything else happened. I didn't read any reports particularly of any stuff happening, but a couple of people did say to us they were expecting stuff to kick off later
in the evening. Yeah,
they said to us that the certain factions, the anti-protest factions, would want to kick off later, but I didn't read very much about that.
Yeah, it's very important to take extra care in how you frame it. And it was an event that it was good to be able to go to see for yourself, take some pictures, get a footage, pay respects, and then be able to ask questions and further deliberate on it.
Would you agree that between the same event with, let's say, like they call far right, like you attended, and a far left protestation like this, there will be much more shit going around with Antifa on the other side? I mean, that will be day and night for sure. And it will cover the news forever. I mean, they will break, they will fight, they will destroy everything. That did not happen because the rule was very, I think the far is much more organized and strict and religious and stuff like this. So I think the message was no reaction to anybody threatening us or stuff like this. I mean, on the far left, there will be absolutely no special request or something. It will go crazy for sure. I mean, every time there was
but now what you're doing is framing this as far right versus far left.
But it is
because I don't know if it is, because the people in that march, I don't know if they're far right or not. I don't know what they are. I mean, so there were definitely some flags which I didn't recognize with symbols on them, which I thought, okay, maybe that could be.
Like what? Because that
kind of thing.
Yeah, but this is Christian
stuff that looks like that.
Yeah, but this
I'm not saying that one in particular, but I'm saying
this was on the main banner. On the main banner.
The main banner. But that was a Christian thing.
It turns out in the France Info and stuff like this, more left oriented, like a far right symbol. Like now it's almost a Nazi symbol to have this. This is this is something very Christian from the Constantine time, and now it's a far right symbol. I mean, that's horrendous.
Nationalism or something like that.
That's horrendous.
Or nativism, maybe. I don't know, but it didn't particularly feel like a far right march to me. I mean, I haven't been on any far right marches, but that didn't feel like, no one was saying anything that you would expect to hear on a far right march. But they clearly were against the far left, as they perceive them to be. That was for sure.
Yeah.
And they were shouting stuff like that, like Antifa assassin. Yeah. And Antifa, I think we can probably say, is globally recognized as a far left or certainly activist section of society. It's not even a party, right? But it's I don't even know if they were saying anything about LFE necessarily. So where this all started.
Really. No, not really.
I didn't see anything. I didn't see any banners saying let's get rid of LFE or let's disband LFE. I didn't see any of that. It was mainly about Antifa. So they were mainly aiming their ire against a group called Antifa, which is what I saw.
And at the same time, you had those posters everywhere in Lyon saying Quentin was killed by the far left.
Yeah, you're seeing posters on both sides right now. You're seeing posters.
That's the only time they mention for...
Yeah, but this all now, for those of you that don't know, France has municipal elections happening next month. And this unfortunately provides a backdrop, safety in the streets, obviously a number one priority. It's nice to be able to have a street that you can walk around in and enjoy the trees and the lack of cars. But if you're not safe, then
didn't he try to disarm? Didn't the current mayor try to disarm the police?
Most of the left-oriented cities try to disarm the police. Yeah,
and then the security apparatus that was set up around this event was absolutely incredible. And again, talking about layers and layers and layers, and everyone who seemed to be interacting, and again, very, very aware of the political sensitivities and very respectful of. I hate it when you hear this, "Don't touch me" and "Don't talk to me." Like there's really the guy's trying to do his job. You need to get down from the bollard. It's not safe for you to be there.
My experience with protesting and seeing, every shape and size of them. When there's an organized protest like this, a vigil, there's some group organizing it, and they're coordinating with the police, right? Because I'm assuming it's the same here with permits and location and the route, and that's all worked out with the municipal authorities, and those are usually peaceful. There's an organized group that's saying this is why we're going to do it, and it's in the daylight, so that's another. When you see these things go at night, that's when things usually turn. So usually these are, they anticipated by what you're saying with the security. So that was shut down. there was not going to be. And those security guys are probably either contracted or they're trying to make sure these guys who are authorized to be there don't go off the reservation and take on somebody else. Because one good fight is, that's the headline. And for me, it's when these end and they walk away and it's dark out, then you get these counter protests that are unscripted, and they're going to do their thing.
And don't you think that since those Gaza events and stuff, those protestations became more and more violent? Because it looks like when you see a far left manifestation like this, there is always a Palestinian flag, even if the subject is something absolutely
even
different.
Even 2020, when New York
never
was set on
happened,
fire, there was Palestinian flags long
that's
before
it.
this.
Yeah.
Like that was associated with
Always a good
BLM
reason.
back in 2018, 2019. Like I was like, why is there a Palestinian flag? There was no uproar about it. But even some of those Gaza protests, again, probably had a legitimate group. If they're on the road and the police are there protecting them, then they have the permit to be there. Like I've been at protests, like, especially like in front of Trump Tower or Wall Street. There's a whole process put in place, and it's already been adjudicated because, they'll arrest you, you go to court, you'll sue the city. All right, here's a new rule. Okay. So it's like 12 announcements by a bullhorn telling you to remove yourself from this area. You've gotten your final warning. Now you're going to be arrested. And those are like the pop-up unscripted.
And in January, you have one guy ahead of this
for the police.
Yeah, for the police. Like he said,
he's coordinating the
one guy,
and they get a lot of practice watching those guys. Like you were saying, somebody's up on the, sitting on a statue or sitting on a wall, and he'd be like, down. Like you're coming down. There is no negotiation. You're not given any opportunity whatsoever for somebody to throw something.
But I put it at the elite level, where it's it was military exercise in terms of execution, as you would expect, and very, very well handled, without event from certainly that period that we were there, and we took off so we could avoid traffic, and also get back for some very important rugby that was on. That we wanted to see.
You're back for the Scotland game.
For the Scotland-Wales game, as confident as we were. But anyway, so what we're seeing is police departments facing historical shortages from factors like high retirement rates, recruitment challenges, burnout, and public perception issues. And they're huge public perception issues. Our resident retiree former NYPD officer, you haven't picked up the phone to the call back.
I'm not going back.
You're not going back. No.
They don't want me.
Even for the Olympics?
But it is true that agencies are turning to retirees, and we've heard it firsthand. A number of whether it be RCMP officers, former NYPD officers, come out of retirement in order to help out with these special events, these major events, whether they be Olympics, FIFA Football World Cups in the United States, but also lending their expertise to crowd control for events like this. And one of the exciting things about our podcast, given the connections to international law enforcement, but also with the International Association of Former Interpol Officials, a number have reached out who are interested in joining us on the pod. We've had two previous, Stefan Teffo, and we've had Angelo Bani. But we will be getting more former officers on, in order to give their international law enforcement perspective, everything that happens around these events, and how police keep us safe. Thank you very much for listening, and
Thank you, guys.
Until next time,
Bye,
be
guys.
safe.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's